Empaths, we must talk about avoidance. Now, listen, empaths, I know you like to smooth things over. I know you hate conflict, but we must come to realize that the more you avoid a problem, is the worse it gets. It's your girl, Keely Tavernar, psychotherapist and passionate advocate for my empath crew. I help empaths to understand the dynamics that they're caught in order to develop their self-awareness so that you can make better, empowered choices as you deal with unnecessarily difficult people. Life ain't easy and caring is never a curse. Avoidance, now let's be honest, we all do it. There's bills we may not open, we may not fix certain aspects of our finance, and naturally, we may avoid certain people because they're difficult to manage. And that, let's be frank, can give you a short-term gain. But often when we avoid a situation, let's say with someone who's narcissistic, who's particularly difficult, it can make matters worse. It can impact on our well-being, our mental health. It can fill us with dread, stress, and anxiety. Avoidance promotes stress. So if your well-being is beginning to decline and there's an issue you know you need to confront, then taking small steps for change to proactively deal with your issue can be incredibly helpful for your well-being. I know it's scary, and I know you probably fear the worst. So many of the clients I've seen over the years fear the worst case scenario. And that is often worse in our mind's eye than it is in reality. But often, let's be frank, empaths, we're not always great at advocating for ourselves. We can be too agreeable. And if you're dealing with someone who's particularly demanding, particularly difficult, you may end up saying yes when you mean no. This just may mean that you need help dealing with your situation. That's all. Because trying to deal with it all by yourself potentially just ain't working for you. And we all need help along life's way. So you need to understand that avoidance actually exacerbates mental health challenges because it creates more stress, which is not great for our body. It creates fear, which we also know compromises our immune system because we're in a stressed-like state. And like I said, avoidance will give you a short-term gain, but in the long term, there will be pain. And often our problems are much more trickier to resolve when we've delayed and avoided and avoided and avoided naturally. We're not problem solving when we are avoiding. We're finding quick solutions in order to manage the situation. And another thing I want to talk about in terms of avoidance is avoidance will also evoke more of your coping strategies. So when we avoid, we're much more likely to people please. We're much more likely to be highly agreeable. We may say yes when we mean no, and we may start to deny or distort our reality. And all of these become bigger factors that impact on our health and well-being. Not great for your greatness, empaths. I get it. And it can be frightening and it can be scary. But avoiding the issue means that you know what it's like, right? You keep sweeping stuff under the rug. All of a sudden, you've got a mound in the middle of the living room. So, what are the steps you may need to consider to start to confront your issues? One, you may need to get support around that, especially if you are trying to deal with a complex narcissistic relationship, dealing with a difficult person. It can be difficult on your own. So seeking support can be actually vital for your own well-being. Secondly, how can you be proactive? Yeah, sometimes you may want a big change in your life, but sometimes that change might be too overwhelming. Can you chunk down and start small? Starting small is invaluable. It gives us small wins, which creates a momentum. So think about that. What's something tiny that you may be able to do for yourself, especially if you're in a narcissistic relationship? Sometimes the more that you're able to do for you, literally just to do for you. For example, if you're a yes person and you find that much more and more of your time is just eating away, doing for others, and there's no time for yourself. Sometimes if you start to diarize things for yourself, it actually kind of just, it can be really helpful because it just means you're not so available. It may not take you into that high conflict situation. Empaths, I know you hate high conflict, but conflict is a natural part of life. And it may benefit you to develop conflict resolution skills. But remember, avoidance is a coping strategy, which also means that much more of our coping strategies are likely to kick in. And so if you find that your coping strategies no longer serve you, if they served you well in your past, it's wonderful. But for many of us, our coping strategies have now become redundant in our adult life. Some of our coping strategies developed when we were kids. And if we still function that place in our adulthood, it may mean we regress into behaviors that aren't always our greatest self. If you know what I'm talking about, give your girl a like. So it's about taking small, tiny steps. But also, it's important to know when you're overwhelmed and the situation is too much for you to deal with. At times like that, it can be important to get other professionals in, like myself, or a coach, or a mediator, someone to help you navigate that relationship. Remember, reading materials can also be helpful. I know we're all so time poor nowadays. One of the things I do is listen to audiobooks. Is there a book you've been meaning to read forever and you've never done it? Well, maybe try an audiobook. These are ways that you can start to learn without deliberately having to sit down and read the book. So this might be something that you can do when you're driving or you're in the house. But confront. Take tiny steps to confront the issue. Small steps, small steps. If this video makes sense to you, please leave a comment below or inbox me. Let me know what small victories you have. If you've been a client before, or you've attended any of my workshops on narcissism, you'll know that I'm passionate about ringing that victory bell for people because small wins lead to massive change. I am Keely Taverner, psychotherapist specializing in helping empathic people navigate narcissistic relationships. Do take care of you, because if you don't, no one will.